I wanted to make fun of Democrats because Democrats spent $20 million trying to figure out how to talk to young men. And last I checked, the easiest thing in the world is to just go to somebody on a construction on a construction site and just talk to them. Like, it's not super difficult to talk to men. It's not. Just go to the places where men hang out. Talk to them at the bar, talk to them at a construction site when they're working, talk to them in the middle of the office, anywhere where you expect them to be. Easiest thing in the world. And yet, Democrats spent millions of dollars to try to figure out how to do this thing. This thing that should be, again, one of the easiest things to do. That shouldn't require $20 million of research. And now, More Perfect Union, a couple months ago, made a video about the problems with young men right now in America, or just like across the world right now. I want to see where this goes. Let's find out. I need to also make sure that I'm using the right button combination for my thing. There we go.
Out there, they're more direct.
They have co-opted masculinity and they've politicized it.
Eli Adams says, what's your position? Independent, anti-state? My position is I don't give a fuck. I'm a socialist. That's what I am. I don't care past that point. I've done the engage with the literature thing. I'm done with that. If by watching my content you can't figure out what my position is, that's no longer a me problem.
I hate this term, the Joe Rogan of the left, that they need one. Joe Rogan is sort of left.
I do feel as though they are a distraction from class consciousness.
All of a sudden, everybody's talking about young men.
Men.
Young men.
More than half of the male vote nationwide went to Trump.
Men under 30.
Men under 30.
This was the testosterone podcast election.
$20 million to try and solve this big mystery.
$20 million.
$20 million.
Masculinity.
Bro culture.
Young men.
The manosphere.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Richard Reeves.
Hi,
and
Richard.
I've spent the last few years thinking about, researching, and writing about the struggles that young men, and particularly working class men, are facing in America. Because of how the last election went, there's a lot more attention on young men than actually at any time since I've been working on this issue. But I've been wondering, with all of this discourse talking about men, how many people have actually talked to men?
Fucking thank you. Jesus. So one of the biggest problems we have, especially on the left, is we spend a lot of time, like an unfathomable amount of time, explaining how bad men are, or talking about the patriarchy in a way that is clumsy. And when we talk about the patriarchy in a way that is clumsy, we tell people who are living in poverty that they are actually living in privilege. Now, it is true that even in poverty, people who are male benefit from more privilege than people who are not. But it is the most useless statement that generally only gets spoken by people who are engaging with the academia. And it doesn't do anything. Eli says, just got here, didn't know what your positions are. Are you a Bernie socialist, Marx socialist, or something more specific? So, broadly speaking, closer to Marx, but definitely informed by Kropotkin. I know Kropotkin's more anarchist. Technically, a term you could use is syndicalist. That would get you more specific. I hit the wrong button. But no, we do not generally do enough to make sure that people who really do not live overly privileged lives understand that we are not telling them that they are this like super upper privileged class. We use clumsy language. Let me give you an example. Have you ever, as like, let's say you're white, have you ever experienced racism? Because I would guess that you probably have. No matter what race you are, you've probably experienced somebody engaging in some kind of discrimination against you based on your race. At some point, I could start listing off the different things that we could ascribe to racists, to races, like, oh, you're Asian, you must be good at math. Oh, you're white, you must live in a trailer park. There's definitely ways I could go about that. But you've definitely experienced it at some point, no matter who you are. Somebody's discriminated in some way, shape, or form because of your race. Now, usually, if you're white, you don't deal with discrimination in the sense that, like, you're not going to get a job. You're not going to have the inability to get a job because you have a white-sounding name. But if you're black, that is a type of discrimination you're going to deal with. So when you hear, like, for instance, I grew up in a black neighborhood. I did get to experience discrimination as a white kid because I was one of, like, 3 white kids in the whole neighborhood. So what does not work, generally speaking, is telling people that racism can never be something affected by people who are white. You get a bunch of white people who hear that, and they're going to just get pissed. Now, the truth of the matter is there is an academic version of the term racist, and the academic version of the term racist does say that there needs to be systemic power involved. And so, generally speaking, in the States, if you're studying racism, it's almost always going to be something that the majority population does not engage in. But when you hear from a stuck-up liberal type that, well, white people can't experience racism, you're not going to get endeared to that person. You're just going to get upset. You're just going to get angry. And especially if you're somebody who has experienced it, you're probably going to be very rightfully angry. You're not just going to lash out because you're an idiot there, though I'd love to make fun of you for that. You honestly experienced some form of discrimination there, and so your lived experience juxtaposes incorrectly with what academia suggests. Now, this is not a problem of the academia being wrong. This is a problem of clumsy language. So what happens is somebody in academia says that statement, and they mean something very specific when they say that. And then somebody who is not a good communicator regurgitates that statement with zero context. After they regurgitate that statement with zero context, the next thing that happens is somebody listens to that and then takes that statement on face value. They don't think, oh, well, maybe this is a person who's engaging with an academic version of a conversation, and this is not what the word actually means for most people. Not everybody's a good communicator, but everybody communicates. It is a tragedy. Another good example of this is when we use the word theory. If I use the word theory to describe gravity, I'm not talking about a guess. I'm talking about a set of facts. But if I use the word theory in layman's conversation, I'm meaning something closer to a hypothesis. I'm meaning something far closer to a guess. And this experience with clumsy language is something that we find basically everywhere. Basically everywhere. And unfortunately, there is no real cure to this other than for us to get better at communicating with one another.
After all, the problems facing men are real and serious. Men account for 80% of deaths from suicide, 70% of overdose deaths, 70% of the homeless population in America. They've fallen behind in education, in the labor market, and other major metrics. And it's young men in particular, those aged between 20 and 30, who are feeling the sharpest impact of many of these changing ideas and paradigms about men's roles, opportunities, and their outcomes. So I had a pretty wide-ranging conversation with 5 young men about their views on dating, mental health, toxic masculinity, and of course, politics.
I am a carpenter and a musician.
I was a former teacher, and now I'm a union organizer.
I'm currently working on an undergraduate degree.
I've been bouncing around different part-time jobs and internships.
I've done electrical, I've done construction.
Most recently as a substitute teacher, and now working at the front desk at a tennis club.
Moving, cleaning, any type of physical labor.
Some of what they said might make you uncomfortable, but the reality is whether you're a progressive or a conservative, both sides need to confront their problem with young men, or a large share of the population is not going to have a political home. That means they might turn to more extreme ideologies, and meanwhile their problems just get worse. So let's get into it.
Okay.
Did you vote in past elections, and can you tell us how you voted?
In 2016, I voted for Trump over Hillary. Before then, I didn't really vote, but I did support Obama in 2012 and 2008. We definitely went Trump in 2020. Not like I didn't support him. I don't support anything political, I believe that I'm just a working man in America. The president don't matter for me. They ain't gonna pass some crazy executive order that's gonna change my life or anything.
It's all happening.
Just smoke and mirrors for me, you know what I'm saying?
So this is actually a very interesting thing to know. I really, really need to get rid of those stupid Discord pop-ups. I have zero need for those things. If anybody knows how to get rid of the Discord pop-ups that pop up on your video games, I need to get rid of that shit. I need to get rid of that. So, problem. A lot of people actually view themselves this way. A lot of people view themselves apolitical. They're not used to their rights being something that a president can actually fuck up. So, as an example, y'all know that my girlfriend Saki is trans. This is not new information. The president can and has put down executive orders which have directly affected her life and will continue to do so. When you are in a minority group, it is far more likely that your rights are going to get assaulted successfully, mind you, by people who have the ability to do grand sweeping executive orders. You have less of a chance of this happening when you're in the majority group, because people don't want to piss you off when you're in the majority group, when they are the politicians in power and you are, by the numbers, their voting base. In this it's the overlay and very simple to turn off in settings. I forgot the exact thing though. Gotcha, I'll have to see if there's a thing I can do. Anyway, let's continue.
I voted in this election. I voted red down the ballot, and I voted in the primary, and before that I was too young.
The last time I voted was 2012 for Obama. It was the first time I could vote. After that, I kind of felt as though, you know, politics and politicians were kind of blending into a uniform party overall, and things weren't fun to me.
All right, so notice that the first guy that actually, like, the guy who's nodding is the guy who considered himself apolitical. There is a lot of people who feel like both parties are the same. Now, they're not. Granted, it makes perfect sense that people would feel like both parties are the same because they serve the same overlord. They serve money, ultimately. They serve money, they serve their lobbies, whichever one can guarantee that more money comes to them from different businesses are going to end up serving those businesses. And it's a corrupt fucking thing, but it is how our politics works. And I hate it.
Mentally changing.
All throughout high school, I used to be a Republican, but my family got affected by the 2017 Trump tax cuts.
You got affected by it in what way? In a good way?
In a bad way.
In a bad way, okay.
Yeah, and I was just thinking to myself, like, who is this billionaire to lie to us and say, well, I'm gonna fight for the truck driver, I'm gonna fight for the carpenter and the middle class person, when he's not any of those things.
So I've just had a kind of cynical view on general elections. You know, I really don't think the general election matters that much unless you live in a handful of states. And I just...
Interesting. So the people that they've polled, not one of these people seems to be a leftist. You've got an apolitical construction worker that usually means they're going to be more right-wing. You've got a guy who voted for Obama and then got disenfranchised. That's not a lefty. That's not something engaging with change. That's somebody who's upset. You've got somebody who was a Trumper and then moved away from being a Trumper, but we don't necessarily have any idea of like who that is. Like, we don't know exactly what his political affiliation is afterwards. It's an interesting group of people.
Use a write-in. I voted for local measures, but I don't really feel seen or heard by anyone in the government.
Let's look at some economic realities. In the top 20% of the income distribution, both women and men are flourishing on almost every measure. Growing wealth, longer lifespans. But outside of this top bracket, over the last 50 years, the trajectories for women and men have been very different. Women today are working more and for better pay than ever before. There's still a gender pay gap, but it's narrowing, which is great news. Men, on the other hand, are working less, often for worse pay. Real wage levels for many men are trending down. I wanted to know if the guys in this room were feeling the effects of these economic trends.
On average, do you think that men are having it harder or women are having it harder in the economy today? I'll start with you, Joel.
I'd say vaguely men, but I'd say vaguely in the...
Why?
And sort of barely.
Why is that?
A big problem when you send manufacturing jobs off to other countries is that they are mostly blue-collar jobs. I don't entirely mean to stereotype, but...
Manufacturing skews very male, that's just a fact.
Everybody's getting screwed, but I think if you're talking 50.01, then I think it'd be men.
Personally, like, including myself, I can think of like 5 or 6 of my friends who are guys who have college degrees and who have not been able to find work since graduating, some of them even with like advanced degrees. I cannot say the same about any of my girlfriends. I can't think of a single one who's unemployed, you know, and part of it is just like, I think women at this age are naturally risk averse, so they're not gonna like leave a job if they don't have something lined up. There are a lot of different factors, but it's just an interesting thing to think about.
Obviously, I work with a lot of people. They tell me about their wages, their job, and women are definitely doing better in terms of like white collar work. But on the lower end, there's people, of course, that are struggling and people that, you know, need help. And then there's people that just have nothing. And, you know, people that just have nothing, I see that being primary.
Hallie, that's not... Okay, so again, if men's wages on average are going down and people on average are not able to afford to eat, framing the conversation as, well, that doesn't mean men are worse off. No, fuck off. No, what it means is that us as humans, as a group, as slaves under capitalism, are doing worse as a group. That is where the focus should be. We improve things for women, but we should also make sure that at the very least, like the smallest thing should be that wages for blue collar men do not trend downward in regards to inflation. That should not be the case, but that is the case. Elihal says, why not? All right, cool. So if I, as a man, am working a job where I can barely afford to feed my family, and then my wages do not keep up with inflation, my family starves. That's the cold reality. The stupidest thing in the world is to want your fellow woman to do better and by proxy wanting your fellow man to do worse. That should not be the case. We should be trying to raise each other up in general. That should be what happens. The reason why the right attracts so many men, so many of them, is that they feel unheard and they feel disenfranchised by the left, and very oftentimes, it's language and rhetoric that says that their needs are lesser that cause them to do that shift. And it's only a form of supreme arrogance that can cause somebody to go, well, it doesn't matter because I'm right. If you're technically correct, but you're losing the hearts and minds of people, then all that matters is you're losing the hearts and minds of people. Being right doesn't mean shit if you're also not effective.
Primarily women on the lower end, but we don't have the same opportunity as we used to, like you brought.
Eli, I'm gonna have to ask you to shut the fuck up. If an area, there's no such thing as areaist. If an area that has mostly black people loses a polling location and a racist person is the one who used the law to make that happen, then that person, there's just a racist thing that happened. Now, we're gonna go back to the mute chamber because that's what happens to kids. They go to timeout and we hope they learn their lessons. I feel as though, and I could be wrong, but I feel like I've got a pretty solid hunch that what's going on right now is you really, really like fighting on the internet. And it's time to stop. My chat is not a debate room. I'm talking about political topics. You get to fight with me. The other people in my chat, not fair game. I live for that kind of conflict. The other people in my chat, not so much. Ali Holly says, look, if men are worried about their wages not keeping up, they need to look up, not down. Unionize and take more from the capitalists rather than fight women who are still making less. Right, I understand, and I agree with you. But do you not see a tiny bit of irony in having that opinion, but framing that opinion initially as a conflict between the men and women? If the argument is going to be for cooperation, then the consistent view needs to be, it's a good thing that we've got women's wages up. It's a bad thing that men's wages have gone down. Shit. We need to figure out what to do to make sure that the women's wages can keep going up and the men's wages can stop going down. That's the thing to do. When we spend all our time doing this whole, like, that's not my problem spiel, all we do is create enemies. All we do is create enemies. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm a pragmatist. I feel like creating enemies is only useful for media influencers, but it's not useful for the working class at large. Falcon the Fearless says, why do some see anything that would improve their conditions as communism? Because oftentimes it is. Boy, howdy, do you know what would really help people who are oppressed by a state? If that state had less power. Do you know what political ideology argues for the state having shrinking power in favor of the people all the time? Communism. Weird.
With manufacturing, I mean, that's a really great point.
I also think when it comes to college education, I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure more women go to college
Yeah,
nowadays.
it's like 60-40. Female, male now.
When you're having jobs that are looking for degrees, the percentage of men that don't have a degree versus the percentage of women that do have a degree probably affects it.
Labour force participation for men has dropped 7% in the last 50 years. A third of men with only a high school education are not working today, whereas in the 60s, almost all of them were working. And that's partly because male-dominated industries, production, manufacturing, construction, transportation, they've all been particularly vulnerable to a 1-2 punch of more free trade and automation.
So, Techno TJ, currently a lot of communism does trend towards dictatorships, but the reason for that isn't the ideology. The reason for that is how easy it is to co-opt that ideology. So, there's a concept in political theory about who gets the power after a revolution. And oftentimes, it is not the revolutionaries who get the power after a revolution. And when they do get the power after a revolution, they often do not know how to handle infrastructure. This is something Kropotkin wrote about in Conquest of Bread. They can solve the problem of the dictator with the guillotine, but they cannot solve the problem of bread for the starving. The reason that correlation happens is when people who are unaccustomed to or unequipped for leadership, but are equipped for incredible violence, they are equipped for being a foot soldier, they are equipped for improving material conditions by removing the problematic person. When a power vacuum is created that way, or worse, a power vacuum is engineered that way by a despot, they can take advantage of that. This does not mean that the ideology is in itself flawed. I'm a socialist, and the name for one of the most cancerous ideologies of all time is Nazism. And that stands for National Socialism. And Nazism gained its footing largely by co-opting pro-worker language. And hell, Russia did a lot of that too. Turns out pro-worker language is really popular and very effective. Tendo TJ says, so hypothetically, for the sake of argument, it's equally likely to happen with, say, socialism. It did happen. If the question is, can a good ideology be co-opted by a despot? The answer is yes. The follow-up answer is, and why does that matter? Like, the initial answer is, yes, that can happen. Despots exist. The follow-up is, how do we stop that? Once we've identified that that's not a problem with the ideology, but merely with revolution, we have to ask ourselves, how do we put safeguards in place for when revolution is what people have access to? Because if we have safeguards in place, then we can lower the chances of that happening. Raspberry Dad says, finally have enough points? You finally have enough points? Oh. Because, like, in Nazi Germany, they used pro-worker language in order to co-op what was effectively a movement with socialists in it in order to take over the country, and then the Night of Long Knives was used to kill all the socialists. The problem wasn't the ideology, the problem was a despot co-opting it. Techno TJ says, I think I must have heard somewhere that communism structurally encourages dictatorships. That sounds like something that somebody who's a moron would say. Honestly. Because, again, the problem is not the ideology there. The problem is it getting co-opted by a despot. If a despot co-opts something and corrupts it, that does not mean that the ideology itself is flawed. M differs. Thank you for giving me your points for an Also, Raspberry does. Fuck you. Why? I see that you got your stuff together for Why? Why would you? I can't believe you've done this. Fuck off. Consider eating cold cereal. And Axo, thank you for redeeming your points for an Thank you for being on the right side of history. I appreciate you.
And loss of a job isn't just about the loss of income. For many decades, being able to find a well-paying job and provide for a family was an essential part of the script that men could look to for how to be in the world. But now things have changed, both for the better, with women having more career opportunities, but also for the worse, with the middle class standard of living becoming increasingly difficult to afford, sometimes even on 2 salaries. And the men that I talk to, they say that even though the world's changed, the script hasn't really caught up. It's almost like they're being cast in a modern day HBO drama with a screenplay from Leave It to Beaver.
You know, Wally, shaving is just one of the outward signs of being a man. It's a whole lot more important to try to be a man inside first.
There's still a feeling of like having to be a provider, despite, you know, the economic situation currently where that's becoming increasingly harder.
Especially for working class men.
Yeah.
Do you all agree with that there is still this expectation on men to be doing well economically?
Absolutely.
Even as it's harder for men to do well economically in many cases?
I think the expectation is there, but I think it's less of an external pressure and more among men. There's a sense of inferiority.
So you think it's more about almost like the competition?
I do, yeah.
But I want to get to this change thing. Maybe, Chris, you and Joel, you both talked about your grandfathers. And I think you both talked about them providing, like, for their family. So how do you think it's different now? How do you think the expectations on men are different now to they were in your grandfather? Are they better or worse?
Worse, because the economy, you know, things is more expensive now. And our area, the DMV, has a lot to do with it too. Like, this is a high earning area. Cost of living is through the roof. But says my grandfather growing up down in Georgia, South Carolina, I don't even know what their rent was. It was probably somebody's car insurance up
But
here.
women weren't earning as much back then, right?
Nah,
so they were more reliant on him, probably.
I never seen my grandmother work at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, my grandmother never worked. She was always at the house with me, or if I was in school, and my grandfather made enough money.
So she did need him economically in a way, maybe that women hopefully don't.
Eli, fun thing, by merely pointing that out, you are showcasing a desperate need to engage in conflict. Oh, he said something. Hold on. I'm right because X. It's time to stop.
Today.
She just knew that he was going to take care of everything.
Okay. Hayden.
I think men, yes, due to, you know, chivalry and traditional gender roles, they are expected to be providers, but I don't care if my future wife makes more.
Holy shit, how you doing? How was your stream? What were you talking about over there? Can we get a shout out real quick for Dead Domain? Can we please? Stormy Manor, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. Did I say I appreciate? Like instead of I appreciate it was I appreciate it. That sounded dumb. Awesome Stella, thank you for the follow as well. Right now, we are listening to More Perfect Union talk about why men don't like the Democrats. And we did a little bit of making fun of the Democrats for their attempt at trying to get a bunch of men around to figure out how to talk to them, when I feel like the easiest thing to do would be to send a politician to a fucking job site. Maybe they'd figure it out then. Let's see here. Ty Gander earlier said something. So now that's absolutely my problem with... Okay, hold on. Techno TJ says, have you read any of the foundational literature or summaries of such for either socialism or communism? Techno TJ says, nah, that's absolutely my problem right now, is that I know basically nothing. Fair enough. Well, I appreciate you coming over to my channel. I'm an idiot. Eli, once more, you are proving my point. You
said you love arguing, but actually, I said I should argue with you and not chat. Now, arguing with you is bad because vocal gooning or something. How is that not hypocritical?
You know what? You're right. You're right, Eli. You're entirely correct. There's a better way I could have handled this the entire time. I could have solved this way easier, way earlier. You are entirely correct. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You have 600 more seconds in the timeout room. That's the way I could have handled that before. And I should have continued handling it again. MK Ultraviolet Bird says, maybe not right now, but I hope it's a good stream, despite the chatter. There's Strike Hammer. Oh, but it's so fun to just whack-a-mole. It's so fun just playing whack-a-mole. It's great. See you, Stormy Manor. I appreciate it. Awesome Stella says, wait, so you're a slime girl? Hi, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Things are gooey here. Not for those reasons. You're weird.
more money than me. That doesn't matter.
Do any of you care? Would any of you
No,
worry?
I would love that.
I would love that, exactly.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Really?
That'd be great.
I'm proposing ASAP.
As long as she's in the union.
Okay, so this is interesting, right? But then let me ask you this question. Do you think that that the guy should pay on the first date?
Oh, yeah, maybe the first few.
On the first date.
Okay,
Yeah.
First
let's explore
few,
that. Let's
you
explore
know.
it. So there's tension here. All of you said you would be quite happy being in a relationship with a woman that earns more than you.
Okay.
But all of you said that you should pay for the first date, and you said, like, that's really interesting to me.
I think it's more of an acknowledgement, like, I've asked you out.
So if she asked you out, it might be the other way around?
I mean, maybe, yeah, if she asked me out, I'm
going to be honest. If it's the first date, I'm just going to be the one that pays. Like, that's just how I am. Unless maybe, like, she's the one who asked me out and she's the one suggesting the venue. Because, like, if she picks some place that's outside of my pay grade, I'm not the one who's paying for that. I'm sorry. That's just not happening. Zentic, thank you for the follow. Also, the Shreyx, thank you for the follow as well. I appreciate. Yeah, it wholly depends on the situation. Robbie says whoever asked first pays. Generally speaking, I agree with that. But I also like paying. So, like, I like paying for my friends' meals when I get the chance. So I don't see me doing any differently when it comes to, like, the meals of my dates. But the when I get the chance is the thing that comes into play there. So, like, as an example, we went to IHOP after the card shop one time, like a couple years ago, and everybody was trying to figure out how to, like, decomplicate the bill, like 7 or 8 people. And instead of trying to decomplicate the bill, I just, like, pulled out my card and said, fuck it, I'll pay. I'm just gonna make this way easier. If any of y'all want to PayPal me afterwards, cool. But I don't care. Like, I like doing stuff like that once in a while. I can't do it often. I physically can't do it often because money is a finite resource. But, like, when I have the ability to, fuck yeah, why not?
I don't think that's ever happened to me, but, like, if a girl was like,
Me neither.
for whatever reason, I really want you to go
It
out.
hasn't happened to any of us, by the way. So I don't know why we're all laughing.
Nobody important.
Men's
Thank you for the
issues with
500 bits.
expectations can
Have some
work
money
the
for
other
being
way
awesome.
too.
I appreciate
In a society
that.
following the old gender script, men are not only saddled with expectations, increasingly impossible to meet, but themselves are forced to expect less from certain institutions that are supposed to support everyone.
They're going to put you on the spot here a bit, Darren, because I know from some of the prep calls that you had some difficulties within a relationship. So we're here talking about dating, but let's talk about how relationships can end. I know you've had some personal experience with that, if you'd be willing to share.
It was an awful situation, honestly, because she actually ended up, like, assaulting me. So I have, like, a bite mark. I even recorded it because she had whipped me with, like, a hair blow dryer before. And, I showed it to the judge to try to get a protective order. And, he just laughed at the fact that I was taking back a hairdryer because obviously I don't have any hair. But, as a judge, when I'm saying, hey, this person assaulted me, a domestic violence situation, for him to, like, make that comment was really painful. And ultimately I got denied the protective order and she was able to stay in the house and, just continue being around me after assaulting me, after emotionally and mentally tormenting me this whole time.
It sounds like you feel like the courts didn't treat you fairly.
Not at all.
No, that's
I
not
had
fair
blood
at all.
on my
That's
arm when I
fucked up.
went into the to go get my protective order.
That's fucking gross. But no, I feel like if you're in a situation where someone has engaged in domestic violence, if the judge laughs at you, they shouldn't have a fucking job afterwards. That's my thought, personally. It was the fisting with feet joke you made earlier during the Beaver section. I remember that I said that. I remembered that I commented on fisting and beavers earlier. I do not remember the full context of the words I say, and I don't think I can be held accountable for them, actually. MK Ultraviolet Bird says inflation is fake, just don't raise prices. I disagree. Inflation is real. Inflation is real in the same way that gender is real. It's a social contract. We have to acknowledge it as a thing that exists. We can point out that it's a spook. We can point out that there's no reason for it to really exist. I think that's entirely fair. But to say that it's not real when, like, it's a phenomenon that we all witness happen all the time, I don't know, seems weird. Also, yeah, I'm a Sonic fan. I've seen plenty of inflation.
Order against her, and they said this is going to last for a day. She, 2 days before she moved out, put a protective order on me saying that I was making Instagram posts about her. I was sleeping on the couch this whole time. She said I was busting in her door every day, verbally harassing her. And the judge took that and said, okay, great. Your protective order is granted for 7 days like that. And like I said, I walked in with blood on my arm and got one for 1 day.
Darren's story is emblematic, I think, of the problems on one side of the political stalemate over issues of sex and gender. Liberals refuse to accept that gender gaps can now run both ways, and they're too quick to label male problems as individual failings, symptoms of toxic masculinity. Conservatives, on the other hand, do appear to be more sensitive to the struggles of boys and men, but too often as a justification for turning back the clock and restoring traditional roles. So the left turns its back on boys and men, and the right turns back the clock on women and girls. As you can imagine, these guys had a lot to say about both of these problems.
What I'll say about Democrats not only abandoning men, but I also think they care.
Comrade girl, when I say gender is real, I mean gender is real in the same way money is real. Gender's real because we've agreed that it's real. Money's real because we've agreed that it's real. The day that people stop agreeing that gender is a thing, then that conversation may change. The day that people stop agreeing that money is a thing, then the conversation may change. These are social constructs that largely inform how we operate in society. And they have to be looked at as real for as long as they inform how we operate in society.
Kick them into the curb and spit on them. You're telling men not to be men. You're telling men they can't watch football because it's sexist, or UFC because it's sexist.
Who the fuck says that? Okay, hold on. Oh, I have a feeling that this guy does nothing but engage in just like right-wing propaganda. Who the fuck says men can't watch football because it's sexist? Like, don't get me wrong, there is some conversation to be had about like how cheerleader events and shit and halftime shows can be very male gazy. Like, I get that, but who the fuck is going out there saying you can't do footballs? It's sexist. Men touching each other's balls is wrong. Yeah, that feels like a giant straw man. I feel like that's there's an end they clapped story that has to go along with that.
Yeah, men are into fighting. That's why Trump is there. You know, because Trump isn't abandoned us.
The Democratic Party...
He did, though. Like he largely did. He supported pay cuts that directly harmed you. He did abandon you. But he doesn't sound like he's abandoned you, and that's the trick. It's mostly rhetoric. I'm here to tell you the truth. Rhetoric is a fucking spook. It's a thing that we have to learn how to be better about. But at the same time, when a politician is engaging in rhetoric for good or ill, we have to recognize it for what it is on the surface. It is a marketing scheme. It is an attempt to get you to engage with a product, and the product is their ability to write laws about you.
Has abandoned men. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Does everyone else?
Yeah.
But I think what's worse is the Republican Party actively lying to men. They play the culture war. They don't want to talk about who could actually be exploiting them, like billionaires, corporations, like trans people are not hiking my credit card.
Hell yeah. Okay, I said we didn't have a true blue lefty in here. Maybe we do. Maybe we do. I want to see how this plays out.
Interest rates, they did not keep my wages stagnant. You're focusing on the wrong 1%.
You're a right-wing man, Joel. What do you think?
I was going to say...
Just threw you under the bus.
To your point, yeah.
No, sorry. I had to get that out, man. I had
to. It's an open forum. It's an open forum.
Go on.
Yeah, I might have to say a point.
Hey, but how did he throw you under the bus? Hold on. That's disingenuous as fuck. The people behind More Perfect Union, do you understand how stupid that statement sounds? He said that Trump is abandoning you. Billionaires are abandoning you. They're the ones hiking your credit score, your credit up. They're the ones who are hurting you. And then you're like, you did the fucking meme where the business owner has like 12 billion cookies and a black man has no cookies and the white man has one cookie, and the billionaire looks at the white man and goes, "Hey, look out for that brown guy. He's gonna steal your cookie." He did the fucking meme. Don't let him get away with that shit. Don't let him get away with the fucking meme. He threw you under the bus. No, he threw billionaires under the bus. What are you talking about? What the hell is going through your brain?
Point against
Speaking as a transphobe.
Speaking as a transgender myself. But no.
Yeah, crazy.
No, the point you made earlier about how sort of the working class people on both sides, there really is no need to hate each other. I was thinking about that recently. The divide in America really should be class. You know, work versus the elite. I can't see any conceivable way how in 2024 black people and white people can hate each other, or Mexicans or Latinos or whoever to hate each other. Really, we should be hating the people making us hate each other. Yes. Now you can call it the Illuminati or Hydra. I call them Democrats, but besides that, no, I'm kidding.
We're not.
Right. Okay, so he's both correct and incorrect, actually. So he's incorrect because the Democrats are largely not a party of trying to hate each other. But he is kind of correct. He's really, really close because the Democrats do, to not the right degree, but the Democrats do try to take advantage of political division. That is a thing that Democrats do. Is that it's exhausting to be so close? Oh yeah, no, I've had the same feeling. Like it is so exhausting to be so close. You just kind of hope that the finish line is right there. You know that eventually you'll get there, but like you just have to keep hammering away at it. It helps to say I'm so close. Usually your partner will work harder when they're edging you. Or they'll be mean. Oh, hold on. We're talking about something different. I'm sorry. We're not. I thought we were talking about edging. Because, like, yeah, you're right. It does hurt to be so close. You're right. I agree. But I don't think that's what you meant now. So.
Not cutting the corporate tax rate and giving them the ability to exploit their workers, but
on the culture point, though, right? Wouldn't you say it does go both ways?
In which regard?
Don't you think on the left there could be a bit of a tendency to get women to blame men? It's patriarchy, it's toxic masculinity.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Isn't there an argument that it's actually equally true on the left?
I wouldn't say it's equal. I would say
gender.
I would say.
Okay, I see what it is. He's trying to do the horseshoe theory thing. Instead of trying to engage truthfully and honestly with a lot of this shit, he's just like, hey, how can we get these guys to fight each other? How can we turn this into content? That's what this is. This is an attempt to make content.
The right absolutely plays more into the culture war than the left does.
I would say the reason why we do that now is if you look at, I'd say the 90s, the early 2000s, the right, the Republicans at least weren't playing into the culture war thing. So we lost. We lost for a long time. And honestly, I think we still might. I think we did lose, and I think it's going to take a while for sort of Judeo-Christian morals to come back into the, over 50%.
How would you know if they had come back?
I guess we're so open nowadays. Would kind of be a way to describe it. We aren't in ancient Judea 2,000 years ago, in a way, which I think is fine. I think it's...
We aren't in ancient Judeo. This dude probably fucking watches PragerU and just is completely uncritical about the shit they say. We aren't in ancient Judeo. Guys, I think he's right. He's not incorrect. We are not in ancient Judeo right now. You're entirely correct, sir. You're entirely correct. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it. Just a little bit.